Dark Sun for Dungeons and Dragons has been one of my all-time favorite settings over the years. And it's a setting that most people may have heard of, but never played if you are of a certain age. And I think that's quite sad. The downside is it's quite a problematic world. So I don't think Wizards of the Coast are ever going to fully enhance it and do, let's say, do any form of large release for it. I found an article on Screen Rant discussing this when I was going through and doing the little bit of reading for the Dragonlance video that came out a few days ago. And in that article, it covers quite a lot about Dark Sun. So I was planning on doing a Dark Sun video anyway. And I think this is probably an easier way of discussing it because it does discuss the world and the land. And then as I go through the article, I'm going to explain why I don't think this will ever see the light of day, which I think sad, but in this world that we live in today, there are some problems with the world purely because it's very slave themed and the modern world, again, I don't want to be political. It has an issue with that word, especially, like take Disney, where Boba Fett's ship was called Slave One, has been called Slave One for, well, since 1980. So 40 years, and now suddenly it's Fett's fire spray because they can't even bring themselves to write the word on packaging, which is strange to me because it's just a word. Not saying that what it implies isn't a bad thing, but it was word and a name for a ship. And because Dark Sun is based in very heavy slave themes, you start as slaves in nearly every adventure. I think this is the reason why we will just never actually see it. But let's get into the article so you can find a little bit more about Dark Sun, have a look at the art from the world, which is absolutely stunning. And I'll say I'll add a few more thoughts, and obviously let me know in the comments below if you've played Dark Sun, if you think I'm right or wrong. I think a lot of us older players would love to see, especially a TV show or something based on Dark Sun. I think it could be done very easily. The budget could be a little bit lower because, again, when I get into the article, we'll explain you know how the world works effectively. So this gritty 90s Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting would make an awesome part of the live action D&D show. It would, but would it ever get made is the issue. So the 1990s were a strange time in the world of gamers as gamers' taste evolved beyond the basic flair of the 80s and demanded a new and innovative settings. TSR, who owned Dungeons and Dragons at the time, um, basically in demand with a campaign setting that flew in the face of everything they had released before. In doing so, they created a dark horse of a setting that still influences Dungeons and Dragons to this day. As conversations about the future of live action TV shows continue to circle around in the wake of Paramount choosing to ignore the opportunity, as well as a recent video I put on Hasbro are ignoring the opportunity as well. There won't be a sequel to the film. They're not going to be filming anything to do with their IPs. They've effectively closed down their movie studio to focus on books and board games and video games, which seem to be a lot more profitable for them. Aspiring showrunners may want to consider this strange world as they decided what D&D adventures and lore to adapt. They want to look at this. It's such a good world. After all, modern views can clearly like their fantasy to be dark, so the twisted world of Dark Sun would give them exactly what they want without just copying Game of Thrones. Now that is true. That I don't think, to my knowledge, I can think of many films or even IPs that are going to run anywhere near to the sort of darker side of fantasy world this is. So we've got a couple of this is art from the books, and this is art from, I think that's from the fourth edition book. They bought out one source book for fourth edition, I vaguely remember. Okay, so first appeared in 1991 in the Dark Sun box set. The world of Athos is unlike any other Dungeons and Dragons settings. So gone are the beautiful vistas, the trees, the water, and everything else. Athos is a wasteland laid with low age, laid low ages ago by an apocalyptic brought on by the best intentions. What little plant life there struggles to survive beneath the harsh red sun, and civilization is limited to a handful of cities controlled by mad sorcerer kings. So it's very much a fantasy version of Mad Max without the the modern stuff and the petrol, the cars and the guns, etc. So apocalyptic event, very few cities. There's not much metal there. There aren't actually many magic users. It's pretty much, as you can see in the artwork here, it's just big, vast amounts of deserts. So it could be quite easy to film. You could get a Tunisia and do it. Use the Star Wars set. There is. I talked about this on my other channel. There is a quick aside. There is a crate dragon that's still in the desert in Tunisia, and in my crazy mind, I love the thought that in 1,000 years' time, when all of civilization has changed and no one's aware of Star Wars, that thousands, these archaeologists will just come down and like that, and then they'll find a dragon. And I like the idea of them just thinking it was real. And they go, oh, 1,000 years ago, they actually had dragons on the planet. And then they'll just come up with all these wonderful ideas. And then people will just, it's just, that would be great fun to watch. Yeah. So anyway, back to the point of the video. So we've got this vast desert land. Um, so most disturbing is how the magic on Arthas sucks the life force out of anyone or anything nearby, making arcane spellcasters a secret, terrible thing rather than demonstrations of power. So it says you are. So it was even the bard. So because it's such a dark and dangerous land, the bard technically is an assassin class as opposed to that focuses on poisons and things like that, as opposed to singing and bringing joy to the rest of the party. The familiar fantasy setting species appear in Dark Sun. So you've got elves, dwarfs, humans, halflings, and the like, but they're joined by twisted hybrids. So you've got the Mull, which was a half dwarf. There is a half giant, which certain players always like because they had a massive strength bonus. And then my personal favourite, the horrifying insectoid, the three creen, which were they're sort of like giant praying mantis, effectively. So metal is scarce. So most adventures use equipment made from bone or ceramic. There's like quite a weird break mechanic where you're fighting with bones, swords, and such like. The most disturbing is how magic on Athos sucks the life out of. So that's just repeating that bit up there. While Dark Sun had a few media tie-ins for TSR, the set getting a handful of novels released in the 1990s, as well as a few video games. It never received the same support as settings like Forgotten Realms, which is, I think, really sad and a missed opportunity. In fact, Wizards of the Coast ignored Dark Sun entirely when it took over for the third edition era. I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten there wasn't a single book in the third edition. There was a source book for fourth edition. I said that's the artwork. I'm sure that's the cover of art book as well. That's what I've got in my old brain. And there is some Dark Sun material that's appeared since 5e. I don't think there was any official 5e. Let me know in the comments below if there is. I know there is a PDF conversion that you can download for free, but I didn't think it was done by Watsy. I thought it was a third-party content creator. All of this means that Dark Sun is generally an untapped vein of potential for any up-and-coming live-action Dungeons and Dragons media. Definitely. This unique world, with its sun-blasted deserts and barbarous inhabitants who can't afford such niceties as good alignment when they're just trying to survive, provides plenty of opportunities for conflict and storytelling. It's the kind of grimness that would let a D&D show stand shoulder to shoulder with a series like Game of Thrones. Okay, as I said, Dark Sun certainly has its good points and weak points, but with Dungeons and Dragons, the characters often having the ability to hop between planes of reality in one way or the other. Athos doesn't have the focal point of this series because you're kind of stuck on it to die. It could merely be one of the interesting locations out of many. Of course, a traditional D&D cosmology, Athos is dangerously isolated, so any adventures that wind up there may struggle to escape, which sounds like a fantastic premise for a show in itself. Totally agree. Okay, so what are my thoughts? Firstly, I everything covered in the article makes sense and is easy to follow, say, which is why I kind of wanted to use this as my introduction to talking about Dark Sun. Do I think any studio is ever going to make it? I now, do you know what? If Musk buys Hasbro, I think we'll see a Dark Sun CV. I think that'd be the first thing he'd do. He's that sort of. I'm not going to go here and make horrible comments about Musk, but I think he's the sort of person that to prove a point, I think he might go, do you know what? Dark Sun is the world that Ravenloft. That's what I was thinking of the other day. Um, I don't know why that's just popped into my head of one of the other worlds. But Wood Musk do it. I don't. I think it could be his sort of project. I think he did North Forgotten Realms. I think Dark Sun is a very good choice. The downside is I feel that it would struggle unless done really well with a lot of marketing. But if it was done well and followed, you're all slaves at the start, and then you escape out into the wilderness, and there's nothing else in the wilderness going on, and you're just trying to survive. It would make for quite a bleak film, but it would be interesting, I think, more though to players of my age than new players because it's only players of a certain age that would, I think, appreciate the world. But the good thing is about it being, if they did it, and for younger people coming in, because they wouldn't have the nostalgic love for the world, then they potentially could change some of it, which then would annoy us older people. So I think it's that balance of where would you go if you're going to do this? Who do you focus on? Me, focus on the IP that you've got. Or I think if what's you going to do it, then what they need to do is start releasing fifth edition books for it just to see if there is any market out there for it. The thing is with Watsy, I don't think Watsy are overly concerned about the players my age compared to younger players. They seem to be now targeting a younger audience, which means that Dark Sun, if they did bring it out, wouldn't be anything near what this older players expect it to be and expect it to look like. So it wouldn't, for us, be Dark Sun. So if the books came out and they changed it, I don't think we would buy it. Or a few people would buy it. The reviews would come in and everyone like, too woke, whatever, designed for a modern audience, whatever the titles that are bandied around nowadays. So it's down to Musk, really, isn't it? Musk is going to save Dark Sun or create a Dark Sun, which will be a brutal Dark Sun. But I don't think younger people will go and watch it, and I don't think us oldies would do enough to make it make profit. Because if anything's taught us by the other D&D World Honor of Amongst Thieves that came out last year, I'm as much as D&D is a big it's got a large fan base. It might not have a large cinematic fan base to go and watch something, but more importantly, has it got enough to bring in non D&D players to get them, the bums on seats within the cinema? And if Forgotten Realms can't do it, which is the bigger one, I know there was issues with the OCL and all the other things that went on. And my personal feelings, I don't think it was the greatest of movies. And I think, regardless of what goes on, and reasons and political stuff behind it with it, like OGL and people basically saying they weren't going to go to it. Had it been a cracking story, that just stops all of that. If it's a good film, people go. And being a good film is good characters, character development, story arcs, regardless, and nice plot twists, everything that you're going to expect from a fantasy film. Lots of action, good fight scenes, etc. Get that right, it's got a chance. I personally as much as I would want to see a Dark Sun thing, watch my other video on Dragonlance because I think Dragonlance has got it's an easier sell to the audience. People love dragons, and if you're not a fan of fantasy, I still think people have that wonderful thing about dragons. Is you look at the Hobbit films that people didn't like, but it's still got Smaug, and Smaug was incredibly interesting as a character. And I think because they heavily marketed Smaug and gave Smaug some more screen time than he probably deserved in the books, which is a video for another day, um, then you can bring dragons into stuff and dragons versus slavery. If you're going to say to your kids, what are we going to go and watch? Because you're not going to want to, if you want people to turn up at the cinema, you can't have an 18 or I can't think what it's called in America. So you're sort of the highest where children can't go, because to make money you need to be sort of PGE 13 somewhere around there, because you need adults to go with children and children to want to go, and then you get adults to go as well. So there is that balancing point where if you did a Dark Sun and did properly, Dark Sun's got to be a 15, got to be, might even have to be an 18 because it has got some quite adult themes. Where Dragonlance, you could make it adult, you could make it more child friendly, like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So that's my thought. I personally don't think we're ever going to see a Dark Sun movie or TV series. So have I just clickbaited my own video? I may have done, but not deliberately. So do forgive me if that's kind of what I've done. But hopefully you've understood my introduction to Dark Sun and why I don't think we'll ever see a Dark Sun movie or TV series. We should see a Dragonlance TV series, hopefully, which is coming on. And again, more petition. Let's keep hounding Joe Mangalella to crack on, and Watsy or whoever to try and maybe we should crowdfund it on Kickstarter. Just get a big campaign going to get it made. But yeah, I think in the meantime, if you do want some D&D type things to watch, I'm going to do a video on medias to watch and videos to watch. But for now, go and watch Vox Machina on Amazon. It's the first series is so good. Second series was good. The third series, I'm only 2 episodes in, and I keep watching other things at this moment in time. But I need to just go back and rewatch the episode 1 from the start. I was a little bit distracted when I was watching it. But yeah, Vox Machina just perfectly ticks that D&D itch while we're waiting for forever, I think, for any form of TV show or TV series or films. Um, that's it. Let me know in the comments below if you think, well, which films you'd like to see, whether you think you're going to see Dark Sun, whether we think Dragonlance. And if you did play Dark Sun back in the day, let me know. Talk about your experiences. What was your favourite character set? Mine was a Three Creen Bard, which was a weird, brave choice. But I did enjoy playing it. So that's it. My name's Adrian from Dungeons Dyslexia. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please do share it, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.